Hello, welcome back to Caught Above the Curtain. So I'm on the Grand Union again. Recently done a video on the Buckingham arm, and whilst here I thought I'd do some more filming. So again, I don't really do sort of working canals, I'm more about the restoration of things. So why exactly am I here? Well, there is a bit of the Grand Union, part of the Grand Union main line in fact, or Grand Junction as it was known then, that is disused. And the reason being, they had to make some changes. So the clue to why I might be here is down here. Look, you can see we're on quite an embankment here, massive embankment in fact for a canal. It's a lot of weight to water, so you saw sort of railways on embankments when we did canals. So we're getting higher and higher and higher, so we need to get through, we need to get across this valley. When the canal was built originally, and the first Act of Parliament was done, it was built using a series of locks rather than an aqueduct. So we're walking away from Cosgrove now. We've got Cosgrove Lock behind us in the Buckingham arm, and we're walking towards Milton Keynes and eventually on to London. This is a major canal in the canal network. It's a broad canal. Takes a lot of boats. It's not broad all the way. I think it's Watford where it gets narrower, but it allowed a lot of traffic to travel between London and Birmingham, and one of the reasons why it stayed is it was always of use. But here we are, right up ahead is the Iron Trunk Aqueduct. This was built in 1811, so it's about 212 years old, and I think was the widest aqueduct at the time. Made of cast iron. It's been strengthened. You've got some arches underneath and stuff which strengthened it. But this wasn't the original way. Like I say, that they had a plan originally to get up and across, and it wasn't this. It's quite incredible that, you know, cast iron 200 odd years later is still as it is today. Fantastic, really. This aqueduct really is a thing of beauty. Look at it. I love canals. I love the engineering of the canals, and places like this, you know, are just fantastic. The amount of work and the amount of planning, the civil engineers that, you know, built this and planned this, and just, it's mind-boggling that 200 years ago, these things, where they were new, it was new technology. You can see on this aqueduct that the bottom is arched, and then you've also got the strengthening arches across it as well. Arches in engineering terms are massive structure. So this was a structural thing that it was done. You know, it was unheard of to build anything this wide at the time out of cast iron. Before we go too far in this video, well, I've got your attention. Please click that like and subscribe, click the bell button, and you'll hear about my future videos. Also click on the join button. There's several ways to become members now. Some of them are free videos, some of them are just like buy me a cuppa, but it's a monthly thing, and it would be fantastic if you could click it and help me out as a channel. So as just up the canal here, there's another like a horse tunnel, which have been used for bringing obviously horses through back in the day. They're really cool, to be honest. They're small. I mean, I'm crouched right down in them now. And this unique horseshoe shape. It's 1919 on there. So that was yeah, that was an addition. So this aqueduct, as I said, was built in 1811. And it's really quite fantastic. It's the trough of it is 15 foot wide, so like I say, it could take a larger boat, take two boats passing. 6 foot 6 inches deep, and it's about 100 feet long. So down here is the reason we're here. This would be the old canal. So the canal used to drop down. This was used at the beginning of construction, and took boats across. There was a series of, I think it was 9 locks in total. One side slightly higher than the other, which is why actually you've got a small lock up at Cosgrove. When the canal was built, like I said, they used these locks whilst they built a new aqueduct. Now the original aqueduct was built by Jessops, but unfortunately that was I think it was a 3-arch stone aqueduct that collapsed. The first problems they had was the embankment collapsed, and then the aqueduct collapsed later. It's not much really to see this old line anymore, apart from sort of, you can see where a canal would have been. It's always tell disturbed ground by the way it grows. There are some parts kind of partly restored, just as a sort of a heritage asset, which we will come up against soon. But when the aqueduct collapsed, they started using this again. and it stayed in use then until 1811 when the new aqueduct was built across. So the new aqueduct was designed by Benjamin Bevan. By this time there were aqueducts designed by Thomas Telford for the Pontyslide, probably pronounced that wrong, aqueduct. There was also Longdon-on-Tern as well on the Shrewsbury-Newport, but they were only narrow boats, they weren't wide beam canals. So this was quite a significant piece of work, to be honest with you. It was actually built up near to sort of both those aqueducts I've just mentioned, and transported down here on the canals. So it was on the Ketley Foundry, Coalbrookdale, which is where you'll find, you've got up in Telford, which was, if you don't know, named after Telford himself. They had a series of canals, the Ketley, Wambridge Canal, they had the Shropshire Canal, and the Shrewsbury Canal was originally a tugboat canal as well. That was converted to take narrow boats when the Newport Canal was built and joined it all together. But this here is a restored lock. The gates themselves are originally from a lock somewhere else on the network, and they've rebuilt a lock here to show kind of what was happening here. You won't obviously get a boat through this, even if you wanted to. It's probably 30 foot long. It's not a full length, but it's just a representation of what was originally here. So we've gone past the lowest point now, and now this would have risen up towards the Grand Union Canal, or the Grand Junction as it was then known. So there was a further 3 locks on this side, which I don't think there's any sign of now. But they fell into disrepair then after, and they weren't needed. So the canal then carried the Grand Union across. So after the new aqueduct was built, these were no longer used. You don't really want to be taking 8 locks down and up to cross a river, which was liable to flooding and other issues, when you can just take an iron trough across the top. So you can feel it's gradually climbing up now. And one of the locks would have been just here. It's just before, there's a fence just up ahead. I know it's just before that fence. I'm not sure anything exists of that today. I imagine it's even backfilled, or even the brickwork and stonework may have been used elsewhere. And it's also heavily overgrown, so we're not going to get in there. Saying that, we do have some brickwork there, but that looks very new. I don't think that's anything to do with the original. So the line would have then carried on up through here and carried on up to the Grand Union, which is just above us there. So following the line up now, you can see the lock just in the middle of the screen there, going up with the Grand Union on the left. And as we come up to the top of this hill, we're roughly about where we are now. You can see this car park, and if you look just above there by the buildings, there's a widening of the canal. Now that was where the canal dropped down and then followed back down this line towards the locks. The canal obviously was moved and rebuilt to the top there, and you'll see the Iron Trunk Aqueduct just up ahead. So this line down the middle here would be several locks going down to the river right at the bottom, which is the Great River Ouse, and then on the other side of that river you can see going back up towards sort of the tree line at the top of the middle of the screen, there would have been another series of locks going up through there, which would have came back in and joined on to the Grand Union Canal higher up on the right hand side there. It's quite incredible when you think about it that they built a temporary flight of locks. Now locks weren't cheap to build, they cost a lot of bricks. A narrow lock probably between 180 and 200,000, so a wide lock you're probably talking 250,000 bricks to build each lock, and they built 8 of them. 8 temporary locks. Now you go on other canals, you go onto the Somerset Coal Canal for example, is a good example where you had Coombe Hay Flight, which they tried several ways, from inclined planes to the caisson locks, which turned out to be very dangerous, to avoid having to build locks, and eventually nothing worked. They had to build the locks, and you don't find many canals left. We don't find any canals left now really that use like an inclined plane. You get a few boat lifts and stuff about. It's very few very famous boat lifts in fact. But locks became the main way of getting up and down, and it was very expensive. So to build that as a temporary measure, whilst they built this huge embankment and the aqueduct, was a testament to how much this canal was really worth to the economies of London and the Midlands. So we're at the what would have been the top pound of the locks now. There's Cosgrove top lock now, and just in front there to the side of where the canal actually goes would have been where the canal would have come up through, up into this pound and up into the lock. Now this lock is only maybe 3 foot deep, and it was literally just like a, I think they call it a gauging lock, where it just pulls that level right up to where it needs to be. The Buckingham arm is down to the left, and the main line of the Grand Union runs up towards kind of the top of the screen there. So restore canals aren't really sort of what my channel's about. I like to cover the restorations and what's going on. I do lots of walking on restored canals, and I do the odd video on certain things. But just up ahead here, there's a couple of things I just want to pick up on. One's very beautiful and one's really cool. So next up you'll see me there. So the first one of those is just down here. And canals were known for having quite quirky inventions. A lot of stuff was new. But they've got a horse tunnel. You don't really see very many of them sort of restored. So the rumour is this was there to gain access to the pub on the other side. The towpath doesn't change sides, so there will be some reason for it. It's very, very beautiful. It's the other side's actually nice. It's got the white ring on and stuff like that. We've got the very, very ornate Solomon's Bridge. It's one of only 2 stone ornate bridges on the Grand Union Canal, and nobody really knows why. There's several theories, one of which being that there was a guy called John Soanes, who was an eminent architect, and he designed it for local landowners, including the Mansells and Soanes, who were involved in designing and building Tunningham House for a Mr. Praed, who was chairman of the Grand Union, or the Grand Junction Canal Committee. There's no evidence of this, but it's just one of the theories. Probably sounds about right if it was being built for someone who was heavily involved in the canal. It's an amazing bridge. You can see the wear on it over the years. Just trying to see. There's rope marks. I think there is there. Saying that about rope marks, you'd expect to see it on a bridge like this because it's so soft with the stone it is, but the actual towpath crosses here. So there's probably a good chance that boats were never really pulled underneath this bridge. Thanks for watching, have a great day.